call the meeting to order. Ask you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight's consent agenda consists of the following items. Item A, City Council Work Session, November 21st, 2023. City Council Regular Meeting, November 21st, 2023. City Council Work Session, December 5th, 2023. City Council Regular Meeting, December 5th, 2023. Item B, authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Conway, Duth, and Schmiesing, PLLP, to conduct an audit of the City of Winstead's financial statements for the year ending December 31st, 2023 for a gross fee, including expenses, not to exceed $38,000. Item C, authorize the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Sand Creek Group to provide services for the Employee Assistance Program. Item D, authorize the mayor to approve an estimate from Victory Building Services to deep clean ceilings and walls in the apparatus bay at the Winstead Fire Hall for an amount not to exceed $3,300. Item E, adopt resolution R 24-03 accepting a donation from Linda Telecki in the amount of $100 to be dedicated to the Winstead Volunteer Fire Department Capital Improvement Plan. Item F, appoint Mr. Colburn Stender to the position of volunteer firefighter with the Winstead Volunteer Fire Department, contingent upon passing a criminal background check, pre-employment physical, and a drug and alcohol test. Item G, approve a conditional offer of employment for Mr. Adrian Santana for the position of part-time police officer with the Winstead Police Department, contingent upon passing a criminal background check, psychological examination, and a drug and alcohol test. Item H, appoint Mr. Aaron Milburn to a seasonal part-time public works position for the period of January 15th, 2024 through March 31st, 2024. And the last item, claims, approve the claims list for February 6, 2024. That's the consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Mr. Mayor, a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have organization report is for tonight, and tonight is Howard Lake Waverly Winstead Schools. You can step up and have at it.
All right. Well, thanks for having me again. I promise that tonight won't be necessary, unless you ask a million questions, which you're very welcome to, won't be close to as long-winded as last time. I think first and foremost, when we talk through our schools and the state of where we're at, a lot of these things were brought up when I came last time. Namely that the district continues to experience slow and steady growth. We anticipate continued student population enrollment to increase by 1% to 2% over the next 3 or 4 years. It's a great position to be in from a school district because it provides plenty of time to plan adequately for staff and facilities to make sure that we're keeping the kids safe and providing up-to-date facilities for both staff use and for student and community use. The second part, as you probably well know, we were able to pass the operating levy in the fall, and this prevented, at least in the school world, a financial disaster for our district. And this ends up being a saving from a statutory operating debt, and we talked a little bit about that last time we were here. And then I think in terms of issues on the horizon, I'm going to assume that the city faces a similar situation like most industry and employers, and that just finding adequate staffing has become very difficult in the past 2 years specifically. Right now we have about 8 open positions. Most of these are in our paraprofessional area. These people provide direct support to students that have special education needs. And these people, it's hard to find people. We have the postings out. We try to do creative ways of marketing, word of mouth, social media, all the different ways, and just the positions continue to go unfilled with no candidates that have expressed any kind of interest. So we're looking at potentially some other solutions as to because these students still have needs, and we want to provide those. And so among the solutions can be increasing a compensation package. Yet, there are comparative districts that have done that, and they still end up in the same spot. Just they can't find people who are interested. We're also exploring combining paraprofessional positions and making another teaching position. There is some, and I won't get into the nuance behind it because it bore everyone to tears, but there's some financial coding and government rules about exchanging positions in that way that we would just need to look at. But just know that we're very keen on making sure the kids are safe and that they're getting their education as they're due.
In the next few years, do you run into any amounts of your staff retiring?
That's a really great question. I do think overall our teaching staff specifically is starting to trend younger. And with that means, we aren't anticipating this wave of retirements. We'll have a retirement or two every year, or every other year. That'll happen. But as far as like a wave of people just walking away, I don't see that happening. The real secret nowadays is keeping these younger teachers in your district for a long period of time. It used to be, you found a district that you loved to teach in, and then you planted roots and you stayed there until retirement. And now it's unfortunate, but districts do cannibalize from each other quite a bit and steal really great teachers. And that was another reason for really pushing hard on the operating levy, to be able to demonstrate to teachers that when you come to Howard Lake, Waverly, Winsted, we aren't going to be playing this game every year of cutting budgets and cutting positions, and that we're in a stable place, at least for the foreseeable future. So no, not any huge exodus of teachers retiring, but there are a few on the horizon, but it's not like a great percentage of our teaching staff.
Your para program, the positions you're adding or the positions you're looking for, is it adding at high turnover? What are you up against there?
Yeah, it's a combination of there are more students with more dramatic needs, in terms of their disabilities really prevent them from being inside of a regular education classroom for long periods of time, especially at the elementary level. And so one of the many ways that schools try to keep students in with their typically developing peers is to provide another adult in the room. And so some of it is there's an increased demand for those kinds of services, more so than I've ever seen in my career. The other part of it is it's a turnover, and the paras are the ones, unfortunately, on the front lines with the teachers that are getting kicked and bit and spit on and cussed at more than your favorite superintendent, of course. But and that can be grating on some people who aren't used to that, and especially if education is not filling your bucket and is not kind of it doesn't connect to your soul on a deep level. There's only so much of that you're willing to put up with at the salary rate we can offer. So like I said, some of it is absolutely a salary thing, and we want to be competitive, but at the same rate, some of it is, it's just hard to find people, just like everyone else is
I
coming.
was reading an article, and in the article they were saying that it's in some schools it almost is to the point where the teachers need to wear body cameras so that they can show their parents what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a tough state of affairs, and I know I can't imagine what it's like to be a police officer where you are always worried about, the things that you say or the things that you don't say, the things that you do or the things that you don't do, and those being those potentially being part of some major legal proceedings that are very public. But I do think some of that, maybe not to the extent that it occurs with our police officers, but I do think some of that is absolutely bleeding into other civil servants like teachers. And there's a concern about that. And that's been, it used to be, the classroom was not a place where educators specifically wanted cameras. And it wasn't because there's anything untoward going on in there, but it's just the camera changes things. And now for the first time, you're hearing more and more unions specifically asking for cameras to be in the classrooms to help monitor and provide evidence of like this is what happens. So there are some winds of change. I don't necessarily know if cameras are that seems more reactionary than it's like the deed is done once it's on camera. Like what can we do to be more proactive about that? I do think part of that in terms of proactivity is training our staff and helping them realize these are the things that we want to see happen in our classrooms and in our schools. And in today's schools, our educators are asked to do more than any other generation of educators. At school, it's now expected that we not only teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic, as in the students, but that we feed them, that we clothe them, that we make sure they have shoes on their feet, that they know how to do exercises, that we provide mental health services, that we provide emotional support. And this is a daunting task. And one of the other reasons I wanted to come and talk with you tonight was the most successful schools in the country don't necessarily shy away from all those responsibilities, but they strategically select the things that they are going to put most of their effort into. Meaning there's this entire universe of things that people want the schools to do, and all of these things are good. But with the limited amount of resources, schools need to be more open to doing what we do in our household budgets, which is prioritize the stuff that's most important. The things that are drop dead, you have to pay for this. So, we'll prioritize a mortgage payment and food and water and the electric bill. And we'll put off, the fancy new truck or the new boat for a couple of years. And to that end, the school district's next big project is actually starting this week, and that's a strategic plan. And we're in desperate need of the community's input to hear what does the community want to see out of the school. And so we are going to have a number of opportunities for all community members to share their perspectives on what they think the school's doing really well, things that the school can absolutely grow in, in other words, what they'd want to see from the school. And then also what is the vision that they would have for the schools over the next 5 to 10 years. We're collecting this input through 3 ways, through surveys, and I'll talk a little bit more about the surveys in a minute, through community listening sessions, and then also through a strategic planning committee. In a second, I'll hand you all a postcard like this, but this postcard has information about completing the survey. The survey takes about 5 to 10 minutes. It's completely anonymous, but the idea behind it is you'll be able to provide your insight as to what should be happening in the school, what you would like to see. And so the surveys are going to be available to all community members, to all students, to families, to business owners, anyone within Laker Nation, as I'd like to call it. We're also doing a separate survey for our staff members, not because they're that different, but they do have a different perspective on how operations run in the schools, and so we have a slightly different survey for them. So that's the first way we're collecting input. The second, and this is also on this postcard that I'll hand you in a couple minutes, is we have 2 community listening sessions where you would be very much invited, and I would love to have you at the high school. And these listening sessions are going to be facilitated by a consultant from the Minnesota School Board Association. It'll last about an hour, and she works to listen to what our community members have to say about our school. And she collects the data from that listening session, and then that data, along with information from these surveys, is used for our our strategic planning committee. Selected numbers of our stakeholders that represent all the different groups will come together for a few different meetings. They'll take this data. Again, she'll facilitate these meetings. And at the end of their meetings, they will pump out a strategic plan. And then this strategic plan will do what I kind of talked about earlier, which is it gives the district direction on what are the things that are most important to this community, so that we can make decisions moving into the future on how do we allocate resources like budget, time, staffing, and facilities. What are the points of curriculum that are most important? You know, do our communities want us to emphasize college preparedness or career and technical education, things like getting, you know, kids ready for electrician jobs, construction things, that sort of stuff. How does our community want us to communicate with them? What's most effective? And we're desperate to hear your voice so that we can respond in kind and provide a great service to the community. So, to that end, if you'd allow me, I have a bunch of these postcards. Can I come up and hand them to you? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
The intent behind the strategic plan, or the goal is to have our board accept the strategic plan by the end of April, so that as we make plans for next school year, our school improvement plans, our budgets, everything is already starting to get aligned by the strategic plan that our community helps us create. Eventually, I shouldn't say eventually, the very next step in addition to creating the strategic plan is going to be my evaluation is tied directly to progress on the strategic plan. We want to hear how the community wants us to assess the work that we're doing. Is it still going through MCA tests, or are there better ways? Is it graduation rates that are most important, or is it post-employment or post-secondary employment? These are all big questions that every community has a different take on, and in order for us to be a more effective school district, we desperately want to hear what our community wants out of us. So.
You know, the difficult part is you can only control what you can control. And if a student or parents don't think anything you're doing is important, that's what you're going to get.
That's absolutely true. And like I said before, I think part of the frustration that most people have, including myself at times, out of public schools specifically, is that we're expected to cover too much wall with not enough paint. And I'm not talking about, hey, give us more money. I'm just saying there's a steep mountain to climb and we don't have enough gear to get to the top. And so instead of worrying about covering and climbing the entire mountain, what is the most direct path to get to the top? And like I said before, the highest performing schools in the nation, they start saying no to things. Mm-hmm. And they say yes to, this is what we're focusing our time and our talents on. Mm-hmm. This is what we're going to get really good at, and this is what we're going to be known for. And the other stuff, it's not that it's not important, but it's not our priority because our communities have spoken, and this is what they want to see out of their school.
More a school of excellence.
1,000,000%.
Well, I think there's a fine line between being an educator and being a parent.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Because the educator can only do so much.
Exactly your point, yep.
Mm-hmm.
And we might come out of this and maybe our communities just say, we're really worried about the mental health situation that is facing our youth and our community. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, that is a very different solution than we really want to make sure every kid walks out of here with a diploma. Mm-hmm. And that's the game that, or I shouldn't say the game, but that's the objective that we're asking for, is like, what is most important to the community so that we can make plans accordingly.
I have a comment and then maybe a question.
Yeah.
Having worked in the manufacturing end for my whole life, work career, we've gone through strategic planning. It's the absolute best thing you could do. And then focuses your attention on the things that need and the things that you can do and you can't do. And I think you guys are heading down the right path on that. The question I have is, I've been doing some reading I'm not an educator. I don't always digest everything I read correctly, so I'm going to ask you, the city gets mandates thrown at us all the time, and they're always unfunded. This last legislative session threw you guys a whole bunch of mandates, but they funded it. But that funding is going to run out. Is that correct?
Yes, I can provide a couple examples. So I think the mandate that probably got the most press was, I refer to it as universal meals, but it's just the idea that breakfast and lunch is now, students don't need to pay, or families don't need to pay for the basic meal. And that was a fully funded program. But I think the last time I saw a news release on it is that in the first year so far, it's been about $20 to $25 million over budget already. And so in that sense, it is funded, but the real question mark is your question, Steve, is just, well, how far does it go? That's a huge question. On the other side of the coin is the universal meals was really the only mandate received or sent to schools that was fully funded. There have been some major pieces of legislation that are coming down that are not fully funded, and it was really disappointing that the governor and the legislature really celebrated all of their victories and didn't tell the whole story. I'll credit Austin behind me here. He has done a bang-up job in the Herald Journal talking about the next biggest piece of legislation to face schools, which is the READ Act. And I think universally, every educator would say this is an amazing idea and it's the right path to take. And it's basically a standardization of reading instruction across the entire state. But the expectations that the state government has laid to schools have been grossly underfunded. And there's a lot of things that weren't necessarily thought through when the legislation was passed. And that's not to say that anybody is against it, but the old saying, the devil's in the details, absolutely applies to this thing. So, for example, the state of Minnesota is going to fund professional development trainers to train every teacher and educator across the state on how to properly teach people kids how to read. However, the state did not program in their budget paying the teachers for their time to come and attend this professional development. So districts are faced with either paying that cost out of our budgets or adjusting our calendars and removing some student instructional days so that it's a give and take.
How is that wheel even being reinvented? To have a standardized.
Yeah, I
What
know.
am I missing?
Yeah, well, I won't go into this will sound silly, but there has been a reading war for about the past 20 years.
Sure.
And there's been basically two schools of thought. The one school of thought of reading, which is what most of us grew up on, was called like phonics based, where they taught you this letter makes this sound. When these letters are combined, they make these sounds, and away you start reading. In the late 80s and throughout the 90s and through the past about 10 years, reading instruction has changed to what they call whole language, which is less about teaching what each letter sound makes and is more just about exposing kids to as much reading and text and hearing the words as you possibly can. And in the past 15 years, educational research and learning research specifically has made leaps and bounds. And it has been shown time and time again that the whole language way of teaching reading doesn't work at all. And that instead going back to the phonics where you're teaching what each letter says and sounds like, that is now the new term for it is called the science of reading. But that is what the READ Act says, is that districts are not allowed to do the whole language instruction anymore, that you have to do the science of reading approach. But anyway, to your point, that's an example of, and like I said last time I was here, I could give you a whole menu full of unfunded or underfunded mandates where you have to do this, you have to do that, and we want to do it. That it's not about a not want, but now it's okay. Well, if I don't have enough paras to provide the behavior support for this kid, and then this kid is scratching, biting, clawing, breaking windows, breaking the facility, how do we manage that in that situation?
I
So
think my biggest concern, and I'm not speaking for anybody else, but I think when they force unfunded mandates on the school, which forces you then to turn around and seek another, asking for more money, and that, I think the state is,
Well, my worry is they force these mandates on you, some funded, some not. But once they're out there, you can't take them away. You try, if 5 years from now they say, we run out of money to fund this lunch program or this, you can't take that away now. It's out there. You'll hear screaming like you wouldn't believe.
and prior to
And then it's
COVID,
gonna fall back on you guys to provide the lunches and the breakfast with money you don't have.
and prior to the pandemic, the next big financial cliff all the schools were headed towards was around lunch, because families won't pay their lunch bill, and rightly so. Like, we should still feed the kids. It's not the kids' fault that the parents aren't paying the lunch bill. Like, the kids need to get fed, otherwise they aren't gonna, they gotta get fed. And so, let's say Jesse it'd be Jesse probably, right? Was racking up a $10,000 lunch bill.
Oh, yeah, that'd be Jesse.
But, and the school has literally no recourse to recoup that money. I mean, we can send angry emails, I can go knock on his door, but I can send him to collections, but I imagine I'm just one of quite a few different collection agencies interested in talking to Jesse. And so, in some sense, the universal meals helps out schools a lot because we don't have to worry about that. But it goes to your point of just there's a lot of expectations, and we keep adding expectations, but then we never take any away, and we're still asked, like, here's still this weight of all of these tasks to accomplish, and we want to do them, but this is the burden that faces schools. And so, to Steve's earlier point, I have had a lot of success with strategic plans in the past, and being strategic about what you're really going to focus on and what you're going to really do well, pays dividends, and it's a force multiplier for everything else that you end up doing. So, so that's we're going to throw a lot of effort into it. Like I said before, if there's any way, shape, or form you could show up to one of our community listening sessions, give us a little bit of your time, participate positively, let us know what you think, even if it's really terrible, your opinion of the school. Like, this is how we grow, this is how we get better. We desperately want people there. Talk to your friends, your neighbors, coworkers, family members, whoever. We want people there. We want people to participate in the survey. On one of the sides of the postcard, there is a strategic plan page on our district website. It's right up at the top. You'll see it. It has links to the survey. It lays out the entire process that we're going to follow so that it's open, it's transparent. I am not smart enough to hide things from people, so I kind of just lay it all out there. So. Anyway, I have one random personal thing, but are there any other professional questions? I don't want to cut off. I want to respect your time too, but I know I can drone on and on and on and on and on.
go ahead.
Okay. The other personal thing I share is that I'm going to assume that I am the newest Winstead resident. My family and I recently moved into the Northgate, I don't know, do we call it a subdivision or a neighborhood or?
Yeah.
Neighborhood.
Neighborhood, we'll call it? Okay, fine. Anyway, we have a house up there, and my wife just started working at the Gardens as the new, it's not director of nursing, but nursing manager, some fancy nursing title. I don't know. She's fancy, not me. But anyway, so we're really excited to call Winstead our home. Our neighbors have been super nice to us, at least to our face. and that's been awesome. So
Well, just on a personal note, I think you made the right choice of the community.
that's what everybody down here says.
Welcome to Winstead.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Big time. Well, as always, if you have any questions, comments, you want to talk, my contact info is all over our school district website. I love talking about schools. I love talking about our community, and please spread the word. I'm just kind of the same thing we did with the referendum. We're going to all the different places. I'm going to the Legion tomorrow night to talk to them. I'll hit up the Holy Trinity group, I think next week or 2 weeks from now. But just the idea is just we're just getting the word out of we want to hear what people think. So, okay.
Well, thank you for
All
your
right, thank
time.
you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Good luck.
Thank you. I'll need it.
We've come to the open forum section of this meeting. Anybody out in the audience wants to ask questions to the council, so have at it. Okay, we'll move on to the city administrator update and announcements. The city administrator said he's got nothing to say. He's gone. So if any of the council members have anything, Tom,
No, I do not.
Jeff, Jesse?
Just have had lots of positive feedback on the program from people, so.
Good. Steve? Nothing. And just a reminder that the CNC banquet is Friday night, Tom?
Yes, social hours at 5:30, dinner at 6:30, with a program to follow.
And with that, I'm looking for a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.